welcome back to another Dice Tower review. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
I'm Mike Delisio.
Today we're taking a look at Combi-Nations, or Combinations, or one of those things. This is a game from Koali, and the publisher who is behind Koali, and a co-designer here on the box. Putting together a game in which you are drafting tiles, building up your little region, and then scoring for those groupings of regions. Stuff we've definitely seen before. But is there anything else there? Is there any new and interesting things that this brings to the table? We'll come back to that in 1 second. First, I should show you how this works. To set up the game, each player is going to take 7 of these boards, the same 7, and they are going to arrange those in whatever pattern they want to, creating their opening area. So here we've got 3 players. We have this central space that holds all the different tiles, the different shapes, with an overlay right now for 3 players. This ring is sitting on top of the board, and that is for 3 players on this side. You can flip the ring over and put it back on for 2 players. And then on the board itself, you have 4 and 5 players, depending on what side you play on. You are going to put the arrows out here based on the players around the table. So first player is going to be red here. They go on the 1. Then it'll be yellow and this white player. And we are going to populate the spots around the board with the corresponding shapes until you've got 1 at each of these that matches the necessary shape. And then we are ready to begin. So on your turn, it'll be starting player over there. They're going to move their arrow forward 1, 2, or 3 spaces, and they're going to take that shape and do a little bit of upkeep. This piece here begins right there, and players are going to be filling in their locations. The game's going to be over when somebody has to pass because there is nothing they can take, or somebody completely fills in all of their sand spaces. Then everybody gets 1 more play and the game is over. You are going to be scoring for areas of the same type of terrain. So you've got these cities and the plains and the wooded areas and the water areas. You'll be scoring points for having large contiguous groups of that. You're going to be scoring the smallest one again, so the smaller one counts double. And then special locations, such as this one right here, you'll be scoring that. And they sort of tell you what it is that you are scoring for. So for example, this market is 4 VPs, but it's -1 for each other of these plain areas, the grassy areas. We've got over here 3 victory points if you have the largest park or the largest wooded area because it's a wildlife park. And so on. There's a bunch of those in there. You'll be scoring those as well right here. You lose 1 victory point for each of these sandy spots that is still revealed at the end of the game. And then whoever has the most points is the winner. So let's go back to how the players take turns, all right? Starting from the red player, you will move 1, 2, or 3. And you're only checking for things that are possibilities for you right now. So obviously right now it would be one of these, but if like an arrow was in your way, you wouldn't count that space as one of your 3, for example. And if something is not placeable, you don't have to count that either. Later on in the game, that's possible, okay? So let's say red is going to go, and they are going to just go 1. They're going to take this first one, okay? So they're going to move 1. Second thing you do is you move this piece here as many spaces as your arrow just moved clockwise. So this is going to go 1 like so. You are going to be taking the spot where you are and adding it to your location, to your display. And then once you've done that, you are going to be taking a tile from the stack that is now in front of this pawn and putting it where your arrow came from. I know that sounds a little complicated. We're going to take a look at all of that again in just 1 second. This gets added however you want to. I'm going to put it right there so that they start growing their water area and their wooded area there. It goes to yellow. I'll show you again what just happened, okay? So yellow's going to go 2 spaces. Yellow's going to go 1, 2. This moves 1, 2. The ones in front of it is this. It goes to where the yellow arrow left. And then I take this and I place it. All right? There you go. That's basically it. This is going to go right here like so. White goes. White is going to go, white's going to go 3. Okay? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. This is what's in front, and it goes right here where white left from. There we go. White takes that, and they are going to place it. Again, however they want to. in there as long as you're not covering up anything previously placed, etc., etc. The usual rules, no overhanging, any of that. And this is going to continue, again, with the players filling up their areas, trying to have large groups that are the same and worrying about what these special scoring conditions are so that they can achieve those as well. Trying to grow these areas evenly also because you're smallest, you score double. That could be a big boost if they're all about even. There's also the rule that once in the game, you may turn your arrow around. So I could take this arrow once, flip it around, and then go 1, 2, or 3 backwards. And for the rest of the game from now on, I play going the other way. So you can do that again once only per game, but from that point on, it'll never reverse again. That's pretty much it. You continue doing that. There's, a bunch of these different scoring opportunities. This one is 2 victory points per each of these other scoring locations. So pretty good. If you're going heavy into those, that would be a good one. And the rule book will show you a breakdown of all of those. It'll have right here what they all look like. And the rule book for this game is incredibly short. So you've got here in English, for example, this front, the victory points there, and this page. That's it. This is already in German then. So that's it. It's just those 4 pages as the entire rule book. You now know how to play the game. That is how you do it. All right, there you go. So that's the game, folks. I'm a big fan, usually, of the few I've played of this designer's games and therefore the company. Because, again, he publishes his own stuff under this brand. Some standouts for me, for example, are Power Boats. I think is a great racing game. Factory Fun and Factory Funner have both come out from this line originally and been reprinted.
Sure.
So usually I tend to enjoy these things. This is one that I thought looked interesting, but I'm not sure, and again, this goes back to that question I posed, whether this is something that would feel to anyone who is already a gamer original. I think you'd struggle to say it's a very original design.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It feels. We even mentioned after the first game we played together. I think I mentioned that it feels a little bit like a game from a previous time. It feels like an earlier era. Now that's not a negative thing necessarily.
That's not bad.
It's not a bad thing, but this just does not feel like a lot of modern design sensibilities going on. Again, you could say that's a good or a bad thing. I do think that I found myself kind of wrestling with. I do appreciate how simple.
Yes.
Everything is, right? There's a simplicity to it that I appreciate. But I have played other simple games that I felt had a little bit more compelling scoring, for example. So we'll probably get to that a little bit more. But yeah, I felt a little out of touch with modern design sensibilities.
Out of touch with modern games.
That's a really good way to put it. I was going to come to. Going to Essen, I was kind of excited about this one. It's one that caught my eye, and so I was like, I was excited to try it. But I was a little concerned with the 2 different. You're going around the outside of the circle, but inside of the circle, which is a smaller one, dictates what the new tiles that come out. And I thought, but then at one point you can switch which way you're going. So I thought maybe those 3 might be clunky, but I was really surprised that it wasn't. It was really smooth, really intuitive. I never had a problem with that. And so I think it came back to, it did just keep it simple. But again, to your point. Was it original? Not really. It just kind of felt comfortable.
I guess for me, I tend to fall on that side of the argument, though, whereas you find it out of touch with modern gaming, perhaps. I find it very workmanlike. This is a game that isn't... It almost seems like a frugal game. It's a game that gets in there... does what it's trying to do, give you combinations of tiles, some drafting, a couple of little puzzles, get you some scoring, and get you out of there in about 40 minutes to an hour.
Right.
And I think that's good. They really hit that, how long it takes.
Yeah.
It was really, again, comfortable.
It's comfortable.
For what it was doing.
I tend to like that feeling of it just sort of, it works well. There's not too much sparkly things that get in the way, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you are someone who wants sparkly, who wants showy, new, vibrant, you're not really going to get that here, I think, at the end of the day. But the thing I keep coming back to, that term, is there's nothing pretentious about the game, and it's very workmanlike.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's I think it's as simple of a scoring system as you can have for a game like this. Like it really, it's as simple as you can get, right? Basically, this number of tiles is going to give you this amount of points. The larger, the better, obviously. You have the little kind of special power ones, the little white spots. That adds a little bit of something to the mix, and that's where some of your decision making, I think, is going to come. You know, it's interesting when you have. I'm at cross purposes with this game.
Really?
I really am, because it's like, because it feels a little out of touch. It also is in a kind of a crowded space. Like you think of like Acropolis, right? Which is a game that just came out at the time we're recording this review. It's kind of a new hot game that has some similar feel to it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I didn't really love Acropolis because I felt it was a little convoluted for what it was.
That's what it is, though. Acropolis was missing the elegance.
Right.
Acropolis couldn't get out of its own way.
Right.
As well as this can get out of its own way.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm struggling with. It's like, I definitely appreciate the simplicity of this. Like, I really, really do. I guess where I come down to, and I feel, and you mentioned, I liked the way the drafting works. I thought that was actually quite clever.
Yeah, it's clean, it's clever.
You know, that makes sense. I just wonder, when you have a scoring system like this one, which is so limited, how much am I going to come back to this?
Replayability is your concern.
That's
right?
probably my biggest thing, is that it feels like it's been stripped down so much that is it too narrow of a design, you know, right now, too narrow of a pool of design decisions to make? I don't know.
I think that's good. I think this, it being a new game, it still kind of had almost a nostalgic feel to me. And like when I pictured myself, when would I play this? When would I, you know, come back? And I pictured myself like at an Airbnb in the mountains, you know, and they have, you know, rather than your Monopoly or whatever games they usually have, this is one they would throw up there, you know, because it looks like one that's just at your Airbnb and you're like, oh, this is interesting, you know, and then you build some memories around it and you don't play it again so you never go back to that Airbnb. That's kind of where I put this game. I don't know that it is one that I would come back to over and over again. I think for me what gives it that more replayability is the way it scores, because you do not just score your biggest, and that's something that I didn't really understand until we got to scoring.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I said that correctly in the overview, by the way, but yeah, you score them all and add it all up together. So yeah, having one giant one is the ideal thing. Having a few smaller ones is definitely, obviously the scoring goes up. You know, it's exponential, but having a couple of medium ones is also all right.
Right, and I didn't realize that. So I just focused on my big ones and building my big ones up. Then I probably had just had various ones all over the board, which are zero, and I got wrecked. So yes, the scoring's simple, but also listen during that explanation, teach.
I feel like the thing that would keep me coming back. You're right. It does have that feeling of lived-in kind of, you know, cabin in the mountains kind of feel. But I think the puzzle is a nice, fun, crunchy puzzle. It's not the deepest, thinkiest game I've ever played. But looking at the next three options, and I like that it's just the next three I have to consider.
Except towards the end of the game, when you have
the end of the game, you have to like see which ones you can ignore visually, right? Yeah, it's a little tricky. The last couple of rounds slowed down a little bit because you need to do some visual exclusion of things.
Kind of things. Yeah.
But normally, most of the game, you're looking at the next three things. I like that puzzle of looking at the next three things and going, okay, well, that one here grows two areas, and it's a simple thing, but that's fun for me. It's sort of it's a light puzzle.
It is.
It's fulfilling when you do it well. It doesn't really tax you too much. Once you throw in the special buildings, then it starts to get a little trickier. I know this time we played, you were trying to get, you had one that wanted to be far away from the others.
Right.
So again, little things like that become part of the puzzle as you play. You won't have that building next time, right?
Right, exactly.
I enjoy that. I think the setup is really interesting, where you take all 7 of those tiles and you do whatever you want with them, how you set it up.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's that puzzle, I think, might keep me coming back as something like Sudoku would. It's kind of fun, that little puzzle. So, are we good? Any final thoughts? Let's dig into it.
Let's get down to the
What do you got, Mike? I want to hear your final thoughts on this.
Man, I've been struggling with this one, as I've mentioned a number of times, because, you know, I do appreciate, and I've been calling more and more for let's get to some simplicity, let's get to some elegance, and this does have that. It really, again, one of the things that makes it feel like an older game is because it's not kitchen sink design.
Yes.
It's not throw every mechanism you can think of in there. And so I feel like it should be rewarded for that. But I do wish that the scoring was a little bit more. I just wish there was a hook there. I wish there was a little bit more of a hook. Really, the scoring hook, I guess, if there is one, is going to be in those special little buildings, and that's fine. I also did want to mention another thing I do like about the game is just the way that it's the turn structure is set up. Once you kind of pick your tile and you move it forward, the other people can just start. The next player can just go, and you can sit there and puzzle a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's smart because it allows you to not make other people wait while you sit there and fuddle around with where you're going to put it.
Yeah.
That's smart. I like that.
Because this can have some of those AP moments.
It can.
Right? And so it's nice. I feel like that's a good way to compensate for that.
Right.
Is, hey, that part can be simultaneous.
Right. Exactly. So I've got all these things, right? And so I'm going to come with a 7. I'm going to recommend it because it does so many of the things that I'm asking for now. It's a simple, clean rule set. It plays quickly. But it doesn't feel like it's just it floats away. I mean, there is a game there. There definitely is thoughtful decisions that you can make most often on your turns. And so for those reasons, I recommend it. I do wish that it was a little bit more inviting looking. I mean, I know I'm a little bit shallow, but it's not the most beautiful looking. It's not a game you're going to walk by on a table and go, oh,
what are you playing?
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I do wish the scoring had a little bit more meat to it, but I'm going to come to 7 because it does certain things very well, and so I feel like I should applaud it for that. So there's
there you go.
my golf clap.
You want to go?
Yeah, I'm coming in a little lower. I'm coming in at a 6.5 on this one, just shy of recommending it because, again, I feel like this is one that I wouldn't be like, someone's telling me what they want, and I'm like, oh, you know what you should get? Look into this game. You know what I mean? If they asked me about it, I'd be like, yeah, it's good, but it's not one that's going to come to my mind to recommend.
Sure.
If I saw it sitting in a cabin, absolutely I'm going to play it. These games, I feel like it's hard to compare it to Acropolis or Overboss or Cascadia or Calico, but more a scale of these types of games. And on that scale, I found this one closer to the Calico, which is more my frustrating. My Cascadia is the one I love.
Interesting, really.
And I found this one a little more frustrating. Again, with the scoring, that kind of stuff, not realizing that you could score if they were above 1, that kind of stuff. But I did just find it a little bit more on the frustrating side for my personal taste on that scale. And the other thing was the components, which I know we didn't talk about, the middle part where you're moving around the little peg. There was a couple times that it's, oh no, hold on, let's restack them up.
It's a little fiddly for sure.
So there is a little bit of fiddliness in there. So because of that, it's one of those, again, I would happily play it if it's sitting there, if someone asked me about it, but I would not personally recommend it to somebody unless they were interested in it already.
Right. I'm going to come in a little higher. I'm giving this one an 8. I like it. I think I'm probably being a little more forgiving because I know what I'm getting from Koali, the company. I know I'm getting this size box. They're all the same size. And I know the components are going to be good cardboard, but thin cardboard generally. I know things are going to feel a little more cramped than I would like them to, et cetera, et cetera. There's a few things here I know to expect. This is a very small indie kind of publisher. And this is a game that possibly will be picked up and republished. It's happened to several of their games.
Many times, yeah.
But again, I found it to be a pleasant puzzle. It definitely was on the fun challenging as opposed to annoying sort of grindy challenging side for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So Calico for me definitely falls deeply into that camp of brain lock, frustrating. This one I found to be enjoyable, thinky, certainly, but any tile, if it fits on there, I'll put it on there. My scoring maybe didn't go up by putting that tile there, but I can build off of that one too. I like the special buildings with their scoring. I found this one to be, it's an honest feeling game. It does what it says on the box, nothing else, not flashy. Probably not going to become anyone's favorite game of all time, but it does feel classic in a way, and I enjoyed that. I really find this one to be charming, especially if you are a gamer that's been around the block a little bit. You like these kinds of games. You do find modern Euro-style games to be everything and the kitchen sink, to be bloated. backing something on Kickstarter and getting 6 boxes for a Euro game seems to be an odd thing to you, then I would recommend this. It's a return to simpler, maybe even better times.
I do feel like that's a good point. This is like the Euro Gamers party game almost, right? Or filler game. It's like a Euro Gamers filler game.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go, folks. That is Combi-Nations. That is a seal of approval, by the way, from us, or from me and Mike, anyway. Well, not so much. But yeah, that's going to do it. So thanks very much for checking this one out with us. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Camilla Cleghorn.
I'm Mike Delicio.
And you've been watching The Dice Tower. Go make some combos.